right, so that was the last of the sanding, at least for now. We basically, if you remember the experiment we did on the last video, the epoxy fairing does better when we pre-sand, and it fills the voids better. We can scrape, so we're only filling the voids and pick up all the excess, or as much of the excess material as possible, before we just leave it alone and let it dry for several days. We're going to use a watertight just because it's going to give us a better, more consistent fill, because it's already basically a 1-to-1 mix, and you don't have to guess how much filler you have to add in if you're using epoxy. It's not going to shrink. It's going to fill the voids really well. It's going to harden, and it's waterproof. So we're going to, next step, which I'm going to do right now, is I'm going to get the power sprayer, and I'm going to give Reverie a bath to get all the dust off and get it ready for the application of the watertight probably in a couple of days once it dries really well. We'll come in and wipe it with acetone then, and then get started basically trawling this thing throughout the entire hull. So we finished opening all the blisters that were out there, so everything is open. I have put a moisture meter to the hull, and the most I'm getting reading wise is about a 25%, which, you know, for underwater and for this boat, that's phenomenal. And it's still gonna have a couple more days of drying before we actually start filling, and we start before we get to the point where we're applying the bottom coat. So it's probably gonna have another week or two out of the water, which is gonna make it even drier. And hopefully by the time we start painting, we're gonna have a really dry surface, more, you know, drier than what it is right now. And right now it's pretty dry, to cover it up, and that should give us a good base from which to go. So that's it for now. Let me get the power sprayer, and we'll get playing with the water here. Nope. So we completely power wash the bottom of the boat, and it worked out really well, because any loose particles or any holes that were open when we were sanding that were covered with the dust were open up, and they look really nice and clean. So I'll give you a little bit of a close-up. Now we're going to let it dry for a couple of days, inspect it to see if there's still any spots where we have to do a little bit more sanding, wash it again to make sure that we have a nice clean surface to start with when we start applying the watertight epoxy. So let me take you around and you can take a look at the boat. All right, so here you can take a look at the, I'm gonna give you a little bit of a close-up here in a sec. So you can see kind of what the blisters look like. You can see that a lot of this is very superficial. I mean, it barely gets to the fiberglass in a lot of spots. So actually power washing it was good, because it really cleared out the edges of the hole, took all the debris out. So now when we clean it up with acetone, we should wipe out whatever particulate is left, and then we'll have a really nice surface to put in the so it's really bad gel coat at the end of the day. Whatever they were using back in 1985 to put these boats together has failed over time, and if the first owner didn't take care of it properly, then owner number X, which would be me, would end up fixing it up. Now you can see that the size of, the size of a lot of these holes is really teeny tiny, which is why I decided to do the fairing compound instead of peeling. I think if I would have peeled, yes, it would have been a nicer end product, but it would have cost more than the boat is worth to peel it and then refill the material to where, you know, you have basically recover everything you grind it out, you have to put it back on and then gel coat it again. So that would have been very expensive to get done. So we're taking the poor man's approach. So as you can see, the power washer actually worked out really well. It took all the loose material out, and even places where, you know, there was like loose paint, it completely peeled it off. So we have now a nice solid surface. Once it dries, we'll go back and check it again and make sure we don't have any loose spots or any blisters that remain. We're gonna get them, and we'll go ahead and pop them up and clean them again with a power washer to make sure that we have a nice clean surface. If we start with a nice clean surface and then we put the epoxy watertight, if we start with a nice clean surface and put the watertight filler in it, we should have a good bond, and it should, you know, basically not make the hole any bigger or any smaller. It should seal the hole pretty well, and it would give us a great surface to get our bottom paint job done. So it's getting there. I still have to take the shaft out, and of course there's two square-headed bolts that are holding the shaft into the coupler, and those things are pretty corroded. So I've brought some special tools, see if I can get it loose, and so we can take the shaft out. I need to take the strut off the boat because I think it's in the same shape as the propeller. So I'm not going to take a chance. I'm just going to get a new strut and put it back on and make sure that when I'm sailing around, nothing's going to fall off from underneath the boat. So that's the update for today, guys. We'll keep you posted once it dries and we start putting some of the fairing compound. We'll show you how that works, and you know, we'll keep sending you the update. So hopefully this is helping you, and if it does, please like the video or subscribe to our channel where I'm posting all those videos. So you know, hopefully somebody will get some value out of it, and we'll help somebody make a decision about getting a used boat that needs work. So thank you so much. Catch you guys later.